Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Recently over on Punch Card Investing, which is the other channel I'm a part of, it's a joint channel where we talk about all things value investing, and I do that with Investing with Tom, Investing with Frank, Brad Kellner, the stock compounder, and Karan Gurnani. The five of us together talk about a bunch of things about value investing, and we have a new sort of prompt every single week to get the conversation going, then we answer questions in the chat as well. If you guys aren't already subscribed to that, I'll include a link to it in the description, and be sure to check it out if you're at all interested in value investing or stock investing in general. But our most recent episode was about great capital allocators and great managers, the people who steer the ship of a company and determine its general direction and determine its success or failures in many cases. A great manager can drive a company to new heights, just as a poor manager can drive the company to ever increasing lows. Or I guess it would be decreasing lows. But anyways, managers are important, and the leadership team behind a company is definitely something you should consider when you're investing in any company. Is management honest, or do they roll trucks down hills in unveiling new prototypes? Does the management team or the particular manager have a proven track record? Do they have the success in their past that could potentially be indicative of success in their future? And on the flip side, have they failed before? Have they gotten through adversity, which could then make them stronger on the other side of it? The bottom line is managers or capital allocators are very important to a business, whether they're good or bad. And in our most recent episode on Punch Card Investing, we talked about some of our favorite capital allocators, or some of the best capital allocators and managers through history. The main one that I highlighted was the late Jack Welch, the former CEO of GE. I'm going to go ahead and show you this clip here from that episode, and we can talk about some of the lessons that we can learn from it. So here's the clip. Whenever I think of great leaders and companies, I often think of a few people, one of them being the late Jack Welch, who passed last year I think it was in March of last year, so we're just over a year since his passing. But he ran GE, General Electric, from I think it was 1980 until about 2000, so about 20 years there. And here I can actually pull up the numbers real quick. Under his leadership, he increased the value of GE from $14 billion to $410 billion from 1981 to 2001. So 20 years, that's a 30 bagger? 30 bagger in 20 years. With an already big company, $14 billion is no joke, especially back in 1981. I don't know what that is in today's dollars.
That's a joke. It's a joke now, but it wouldn't have been back then.
Now that's an unprofitable IPO. Like, no problem. That's not even a tenth of an IPO. But still, he's been dubbed like manager of the century. All these nicknames. Has some really great leadership products out there. I read one of his books actually when I was in college, and that's how I was introduced to him. But that book was The Real MBA. I would definitely recommend checking it out. I'll include an affiliate link to it in the description below. I think I've mentioned it in passing on the channel before, but really just a great book about management and leadership strategies, mainly in the business world, but a lot of the lessons can transfer beyond just the business world as well. It looks at a lot of case studies of successful managers who've maybe turned around companies or have fixed really gaping problems in the company. So really awesome book, very recommended for anyone looking to learn about leadership or anything with management strategies. Definitely a great one. Anyways, back to the clip. Because he's got a lot of great experience in running the company. But his being a big business, they were very diversified in a ton of things. GE does a ton of different products, still does. And that can be very difficult to juggle and manage. It's part of that sort of problem that Berkshire runs into and many others. Once you get too big, it becomes very hard to produce outsized returns, because in order to move the needle, you need a big deal or many, many, many small deals. And that just can be very hard to manage. You need people to run it, and then you're losing your margin there. But Welch came in 81, and his big focus was on eliminating bureaucracy and running a lean machine, which is very difficult to do in a company the size of GE, even at the time, and especially now. And his big focus was on reducing bureaucracy, getting people to be comfortable with communicating with each other, as opposed to going through some hierarchy or whatever it might be. And it paid off in huge ways. And he also was rather ruthless, especially at the beginning, in cutting out the fat and in even completely destroying particular departments in the business that might have been unprofitable or just weren't in the right direction. He wouldn't hesitate to get rid of it. That was another thing that marked his career, was that he was very quick to decide, this isn't a good decision. We're going to we're going to cut our losses and move on and focus on something else, which is a hard thing to do. We're talking about politics, in which is very much a thing for businesses too. It can be hard to make those tough decisions. There's people on the line, and you're going to get judged for sure, and for going through a short-term sort of hard situation. And the politics we were talking about earlier on in the episode, it's actually about the way that quarterly filings are done and how business performance is really scrutinized at the quarterly level, when really we should be looking at businesses for the long term, if you're a long-term investor, of course, but everything gets very short-term focused, and it's more about sort of posturing and showing how good the company might look in a quarter rather than actually trying to go for long-term growth, because that might not actually pan out for a very long time, and then the share price decreases and everyone's all panicky. And the quarterly filing system, while it does provide ideally more information, it does come with that added cost of it becoming a lot more of a marketing effort for companies rather than necessarily going to try to go for long-term growth. You're looking a lot more quarter to quarter, and that might not be best for business growth. But anyways, but it might be the best thing for the long term, and he clearly never lost his focus there. I think revenue expanded from, I had that number somewhere earlier. Revenue expanded from 28 billion to 170 billion, and profitability did as well. He did leave right at the peak of the tech bubble, so there might have been a little bit of extra valuation there at the end, but still definitely added tremendous value to GE through his efforts, and a lot of great ideas in there, but definitely more to the people focused. That just shows you that's what companies are. They're people first, and if you can't run people, best of luck to you running a business, because businesses are filled with people, and being able to move the pieces around and get people to perform at their highest is a hard thing to do. And to that people point, it can be very difficult to manage a company, especially a very large one. And it can be very easy to fall into a sort of complacency at a larger company where maybe you got some long-term contracts and money's just coming in and there's not a lot of pressure to grow, and people are just trying to collect their paychecks because there's thousands of employees and you might not have as much of that entrepreneurial spirit. So it's very hard to try and drive that in a large company especially, but even in a small company too. It's hard to manage people when incentives might not be aligned as they should be, and realigning those incentives can be a painful process in itself, and it's just a very difficult thing managing people at any level, whether it be a huge company or a small company. And those managers that can't manage people have an uphill battle, and they better surround themselves with people who can, and that's a tall order in itself. Being able to actually pick competent mid-level managers and below, that's hard to do too. It's one of the challenges of running any business, and it's certainly a challenge to scaling a business, because most of the time the way to scale is you're going to eventually have to need to bring on more people, whether that's people who will run your automated systems that aren't totally automated because they run into bugs and you got to put out the fires there with people, or you got customer support. If you're selling a lot of stuff, you're going to need to grow at some point. You can't just run a one-person thing and expect to have a multi-billion-dollar company. Sure, there are random anomalies, but it's very rare. But I suppose if you're a company that runs one unprofitable deli, you could probably net a valuation somewhere close to $100 million in this market. Smash the like button if you got that reference, and if you didn't get the reference, smash the like button anyways after you watch the video about the $100 million deli that I did some weeks ago. I'll link it above. But the Jack Welch case study with GE is a great example of what one manager can really do to turn around a business. Sure, could someone else have done something similar? Maybe, but he did, and it just shows the power of having one great manager steering the ship, and then someone who's able to allocate things appropriately, creating new lines of businesses, improving existing ones, and getting rid of the ones that have no hope quickly and swiftly. That's not easy to do. You got to take flack when doing it, and you got to have some pretty thick skin, but still be open-minded enough to actually receive feedback, receive criticism, and actually adapt on the fly. That's a very rare skill set, and that skill set might not necessarily translate as well to a different type of business. Businesses have stages. Sometimes at the beginning of a business's life, it might need much more of a visionary at the beginning, someone who can really see the initial goals through, get the growth stage underway, constantly working towards that visionary goal that someone who might be more of an optimizer might not have. Jack Welch was probably more of an optimizer. Granted, he did grow a lot of other businesses within it, but his real specialty was optimizing the existing business. It was cutting out the fat, as I mentioned. It was putting people in a better position to succeed, and thus the business succeeded a lot more. There's no saying that his skill set would have translated as well to something like a newer startup or something that's really entering its initial exponential growth phase and really is banking on one particular idea just to get off the ground. All I'm saying is that one type of manager might succeed in one position and might fail in another. Of course, there are some managers who will fail in every position because it's a very hard thing to succeed in even one of them. But clearly you can get some monumental results when you get a good manager steering the ship. But if you guys want to check out the rest of that episode, we talked about a lot of great capital allocators, answered a lot of good questions as well. Definitely check that out. I'll include that link in the description below over to Punch Card Investing. It's a weekly live stream we're doing. Definitely subscribe if you haven't already. But otherwise, that's all I've got for today. So if you like this video, please like it since that would help the channel out a lot. And while you're subscribing to Punch Card Investing, don't forget to subscribe to this channel as well if you haven't already. I put out new videos every single week about investing and personal finance. So if you like that sort of content, be sure to have a look around the channel. And if you like what you see, be sure to subscribe. But until next time, take care.